Hey, everybody, it's producer John here. I have Bill McClellan on the line, on the telephone. Bill was on the show a couple weeks ago. It was a fantastic show. I think it's one of our best we've done. But there was one subject that we intended on talking about that we didn't get around to, and it's very important to us. And I'm kind of glad we're doing a separate little piece on this. But as listeners know, we've been trying to get Paige Spears out of jail via a commutation by the Governor Parson, who's leaving office at the end of the year. Paige was caught up in he did a series of robberies. He got life in prison based on the law at the time in 1988. Also, the laws pertaining to parole have changed since Paige was convicted of that third one. So he's still in prison 36 years for an armed robbery that no one was hurt, no shots were fired, he got caught immediately after the incident. So just a little recap for those of you who may not be familiar. But Bill, how did you first come to the attention, or how did Paige come to your attention?
John, I can't recall whether Paige wrote me a letter or maybe somebody from the Department of Corrections alerted me to Paige. But it was a case that, I found so gripping because, this is not a man claiming innocence where you think, well, maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. This was a guy who was an unsuccessful stick-up man, but never shot anybody. And it just seems to me like, you, me, society, we want the bad guys to understand that if you come upon us in a parking lot at night and rob us, there's an incentive for killing the witness. And if you leave that witness live, we'll treat you a lot better than if you kill him. And Paige is being treated as if he killed somebody. And he did several robberies, as I remember. Paige, I think he did his first robbery when he was 16 and was certified as an adult and just did a short bit of time and then got out and did another one and got a longer bit and got out. And he was a wild and reckless kid, but from a nice family. I mean, his mother and his sisters have always been supportive of him. And when Paige did, I don't remember if it was his third or fourth one, the one that Steve Goldman sentenced him on. But, as I remember, they offered Paige like 15 years if you plead guilty to it. And, because he was young and dumb, he said no. And he took it to trial, and they gave him a life sentence. And back in those days, it seems like people were killing people and getting 8 years or 12 years. And Paige got stuck with this ridiculous sentence. And then when they changed the law, the parole, what a life sentence means, nowadays Paige would have gotten out. If second-degree murder, he would have been eligible. He would have aged out of the system already. But because they used a different set of numbers and didn't make it retroactive when they changed the numbers, so Paige is stuck, doing like, his commutation thing is based on life being 50 years instead of being like, I think it's 35 now or something. But it's right. Just ridiculous. Yeah, it's just ridiculous that Paige, it isn't like he shot two people and wounded one. He never shot anybody. He was just a reckless, stupid kid and didn't learn from his first couple of mistakes. And he's gone through every program possible in the Department of Corrections. And the people that I knew in the Department of Corrections, they all vouch for Paige. They say, this is a guy who's not going to go out and do anything. And I think his mom might be, 90 years old or approaching it. And it would be so good to see Paige get out while his mother's still alive.
Absolutely. And, we were put in touch with Paige through his stepbrother. And we had a phone call, I did, with the stepbrother, and then he put Paige on, who was on the other line. And when somebody comes to a police officer and asks to help get somebody out of prison for armed robbery, I was skeptical, to say the least, but I took down his information. I said, hey, call me back in a week. And it wasn't until I read the series of columns that you wrote regarding Paige over the years that convinced me that this was something that was worthy of us looking into. And how many articles did you write, do you think, over the years?
Maybe 5. I don't know. Over the years, one here and then another one, and I went and visited Paige, and when I would write something, I often find out more after I write something than when I write it, because all of a sudden people are calling me or sending me notes going, well, do you know this? And everybody who wrote me about Paige was, on Paige's side, which is very unusual for me, because usually I'll write about somebody and, somebody who he owes money to will call and say, well, this guy did. But everybody said, well, Paige is a changed man. And I also like the fact that it was clear that Paige was not an innocent man wrongly convicted, because those stories can get so convoluted and you're not quite sure about it. And, you feel like you're going out on a limb sometimes.
Right.
A thin limb. But Paige, he's upfront about it, that, he was crazy and he was a stick-up man, and that's what he did. And they weren't big stick-ups. I think, a couple might have been street robberies, and then it seems like he might have robbed dry cleaners, and then the liquor store in Ferguson, the one that got him the life sentence. And in any of those situations, if Paige were an evil, mean person, he could have shot somebody and left no witness. But he didn't. And I've talked to a lot of prosecutors and law enforcement people who say that, hey, an armed robbery is just a finger twitch away from a murder. And I say, absolutely, but this guy's finger never twitched, and we ought to give him some credit for that.
Yeah, and the ironic thing is his stepbrother, Steve James, who's now an artist, but he was the victim of an armed robbery, and he's paralyzed now. He got shot, and the two stick-up men, they killed Steve's friend who he was with, and they shot Steve, who they weren't putting up any resistance at all. But like you said, Bill, they didn't want to leave any witnesses behind. These guys were on a crime spree, and they shot these two people for no reason. So, it's kind of full circle there. But, the other thing that people need to know is just that Paige has been completely rehabilitated. He's taken every possible course. Now he teaches the courses on rehabilitation. He mentors people in the penitentiary. He volunteers in there's a hospice in Farmington for older patients who are sick. He volunteers in there. He gave a lady worker there was having a stroke, and he gave her first aid until they could get help. So he's a guy who's completely changed his life, and who I have, and I know you feel the same way, Bill. I have no reservations if we can help get him out, that he's not going to reoffend or do anything but positive things when he gets out.
Right. And unlike a lot of guys, he has a support system. He has a family that has stayed with him, that always thought that, Paige was better than this. And, when I talk to people about Paige, I always emphasize that, hey, I'm not saying to go light on street crime. If you want to put somebody away for 15 or 20 years, okay, but for 35 years, for life, that's not only unfair, but it's sending a terrible message to the hot-headed kids with guns today.
No doubt. Well, Paige just turned 64 the other day. If the governor does not commute his sentence, he won't be eligible for parole till he's 70, and almost for certain his mom won't still be around by then.
Right. But it would be so nice to see his mom be able to have her son back.
No doubt, Bill. Well, we'll stay on top of it. I really appreciate you
Okay, and
doing this.
I think it's really cool, John, that you guys from law enforcement are, backing Paige and saying that, hey, a man can change, and nobody's saying, let's, let him loose, let all the prisoners out. We're saying that this guy has more than paid his debt to society.
Yes, to me, the prison system's for rehabilitation, and once somebody proves that they're rehabilitated, then let him out and open that cell for somebody who needs to be rehabilitated and who's causing problems. So,
Amen, John.
all right, Bill. Thank you very much.
Okay, hey, thank you, John.
All right.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye.